Little Red Fox and the Magic Moon by Alison Uttley. Your reader is Phillida Sewell. Little Red Fox and the Magic Moon. One day the sun shone so hard that spickles and sparkles flashed on the beech leaves, and every blade of grass was like a silver fish. The sun laughed when the little red fox leapt lightly on his toes, and it sent golden rays to warm the small fox's fur. Mrs. Badger came to the door of the stone cottage under the hill. She waved her apron like a flag, and then she banged 2 stones together to call her family to dinner. Clack, clack, clack went the stones. Dinner, dinner, they seemed to say. Bill and Bonnie came hurrying from the wood where they had been digging for treasure. The little red fox danced over the bars of light and shadow and ran into the house. He looked at the table and he sighed deeply. But Bonnie and Bill cried, "Dinner, dinner," as they ran through the doorway. They sat at the table, grasping their wooden spoons, but the little red fox tied a string made of grasses to his spoon and pretended it was a fishing rod. "Come, eat your dinner, Rufus," said Mrs. Badger, stirring his bowl of soup. "I'm tired of herb pudding and nettle soup. I don't like what we have," pouted the little red fox. Bill and Bonnie stared at their foster brother. What was the matter? They liked good green nettle soup, and they loved herb pudding with marjoram and elderflowers and wild thyme. "Eat your dinner, Rufus," said Mrs. Badger patiently. "I'm going fishing, Mammy Badger," said the little red fox, looking up at her with a foxy smile and waving his spoon. "I'll make a fishing rod and go fishing in the river and catch lots of fish for you to fry for dinner." "That you won't," said Mrs. Badger. His bright smile faded, but he tried again. "I want to go fishing, please, Mammy Badger. I loves you, I do," said the little red fox, and he threw her a kiss. "You would get drownded dead, for sure. You'd fall in. I can't lose my bad little fox," said Mrs. Badger, patting his head. "I can swim," said the little red fox proudly. "You'd meet a man, or a foxhound, or a crocodile," said Mrs. Badger. "A crocodile?" cried the little red fox. "How exciting!" "He likes danger," chimed in the little badgers admiringly. "Let's all go fishing, Mammy." "Eat your dinners," said Mrs. Badger. But as they ate their herb pudding and drank the fresh spring water, she changed her mind. She looked at the sky and smelt at the wind. "You shall go," said she. "When the wind's in the south, it blows bait into the fishes' mouths. I should like a nice fat trout for your father's supper." "Oh, thank you, Mammy Badger," they cried, hugging her. They cut willow branches and tied wriggling worms to the end for bait. The little red fox knew exactly how to make a fishing rod. Then they wove a rush basket to carry the fish and lined it with fresh grass. They ran down the field and across the wood to the river bank. They sat in a row, 3 little animals, each with a slender rod and wriggling worm dangling over the water. "Keep very quiet, Bonnie. Don't speak, Bill," whispered the little red fox. "Those fish mustn't know we're here." The sun beat down, making every wave flash and twinkle, so that it looked like thousands of glittering gold fish. Down below in the cool dark water, every little fish laughed at the 3 shadows above them. "Little Red Fox goes fishing," chanted the fish. "Little Bill and Bonnie Badger go fishing too. Won't catch us." They flirted their tails and set free the little worms, and then they put water weed on the hooks. "They're biting," whispered the little fox excitedly, but the fish leapt high in the air, right under the noses of the three, and they turned somersaults as they dropped back into the river. "Lots of fish, all flying," said the little red fox. "I'll sing to them and enchant them." He made a dish of dock leaves and held it ready. Then in a squeaky voice he sang to them, "Pretty little fishy, come to my dishy, and we'll all have tea." For a minute there was only the ripple of the water, and then many small voices, sweet as bells, came to the astonished animals. "We have no wishy to leap on a dishy for nobody's tea." "Did you hear that?" exclaimed Bonnie. They all kept very still, and from the river came a chorus of many fishes. "We lives in the water, so you didn't oughter catch fishes for your tea." "Did you hear that?" asked Bill. "Yes," said the little red fox. "Perhaps we didn't oughter catch fishes for our tea." They picked up their fishing rods, but down the river came the snow-white swan, gliding along in her beauty. On her head she wore a little silver crown, and her feathers were curved like sails as she moved on the glittering water. "Little Red Fox, what are you doing?" "Fishing?" she asked in her soft voice, which hardly anyone hears. "You can't catch those fish, you know." "Why not?" asked the little red fox. "Because they're too clever to be caught," replied the swan. "They all go to school down in the river, and they learn about foxes and badgers and man. Come here in the evening, then you'll see many things. The moon will be full, and you can catch some moonshine, or a star maybe." They stayed on the river bank, watching the swan, listening to the water, looking at the busy water rats at their house doors, and the dippers hopping from stone to stone, and the kingfishers flying with emerald wings, the pied wagtails shaking their long tails, and the willow warblers singing down the scale. "There's Peggy Whitethroat and Peggy Dishwasher," said the little red fox. "I know them all. Hello, hello, Peggy." And he waved his paw to the willow warblers and the wagtails. "They've come to do their washing," he explained. On the way home they filled their basket with mushrooms and crab apples and berries. "Didn't catch any fish," said Little Red Fox to Mrs. Badger. "They didn't want to be caught. They sang to us." "Fishes are artful," said Mr. Badger slowly, sucking his pipe. "Tell us about them," said Bonnie. So after supper, Mr. Badger sat in the doorway and told his family about all the creatures of the river, and the little fish, and the big salmon, the lively, beautiful trout, the elvers who come to live there, the lowly caddis worms, and the water boatmen who skate on the surface of the shallows. "Do starfish and moonfish live in the river?" asked Rufus. "Starfish live in the sea, and I don't know about moonfish," said Mr. Badger. "You'd best get off to bed and dream about them." But the little red fox didn't go to sleep. He waited till Bonnie and Bill were snoring, and then he leapt from his bed, slipped on his jacket, opened the window wide, and skipped into the moonlight. "Hello, Mrs. Moon," he said, making a deep bow to the lovely moon, and the moon bowed back to the little red fox. "I might catch a moonfish for Mammy Badger," thought the little red fox. as he grabbed his fishing rod from the bush where he had left it. He arrived safely at the river, although there were quite some queer little noises and owls and weasels on the way. Down there everything was different and much more exciting. He raised his nose and sniffed at the scents of the river bank. There was the strong smell of wet mud, which was delicious, and the fragrance of water mint and wild geranium and meadowsweet, and the rich odour of moss and leaves. The river was alive. It sang very loudly indeed as it rushed over the rocks, with foaming flecks of white and silky little waterfalls. In the waves were broken gold stars and a crooked gold moon, which shone like the stars and moon in the sky above. 2 moons, said the little red fox under his breath. Lots of starfish. He threw his line into the water and at once caught a scrap of moonshine. He put it in his pocket. Then he fished again, and a little gold star came out. He placed it on the grass, where it lay, thin and watery, shining with a light of its own. He fished again, and caught another, and soon he had a pile of gold. The white swan came silently down the river, and she stayed near, paddling with her brown feet against the swift water. The little fox did not see her. He was so intent on his fishing. Haven't you caught enough, little red fox? You can't carry all that starlight home. You will rob the river. Oh, you frightened me, cried the little fox. Does it matter, fishing up all these stars? One's enough, said the swan. Throw the rest back, little red fox. The little red fox hesitated a moment, and then he tossed the stars into the river, where the white hands seemed to stretch up and catch them. Whose are those? Stammered the little fox. They're water nymphs who live here, answered the swan. As the little red fox stood staring, trying to see the water nymphs, a small boat came down the river. It rested against a rock, and the river gently tossed it up and down. Look! Look! A boat! He cried excitedly. He dived into the river and swam boldly to the tiny craft. He scrambled in without upsetting her and found 2 oars. She's a runaway boat, said the swan. She once belonged to the otters, but they didn't want her, so away she went. I saw her a few days ago, caught in the reeds, but she has got free. Can I have her? Asked the little red fox. Yes, answered the swan. Yes, if you're good. Thank you, Lady Swan, replied the little red fox, and he rowed to the bank and tied the painter to a tree. He washed the boat with a bunch of leaves and bailed out the water and shook the damp cushions. She was a very small boat, ruddy as a chestnut, and her name was painted on the side. The little red fox was not good at reading, but he knew the name was Water Lily because there was a picture of a water lily for all to see. Goodbye, little red fox, goodbye, water lily, said the swan, and she drifted on her way, swimming slowly with the river on a pale band of moonshine. I'll hide her so that nobody can find her, thought little red fox, and he dragged the boat up the bank, untying the rope and stowing the oars. She came so easily he found he could lift her by himself. I'll carry her home to Mammy Badger, said he. He tilted the boat on his back and walked on all fours, with his small legs just appearing underneath, so that he looked like a tortoise waddling along under his shell. He couldn't see where he was going, and the boat seemed to grow heavier, as all things get heavy on a long walk. He wished he had Bonnie and Bill to help him. and he wished he could see the moon. Suddenly the boat was pushed hard over him, and he sank to the ground, completely smothered. The boat was tight upon his back like a shell on a nut. I'm caught, I'm in a trap, he thought in a panic. He dare not shout for help. There was a loud chuckle from the bottom of the boat as somebody thumped on the wood. Then a rough, barking voice began to sing a hateful song which the little red fox had heard before. Yo ho, I've got a little fox or a crocodile. I'll keep him in a box for just a while. I'll cook him with some herbs and chamomile. The little red fox knew it was his wicked uncle, the big fox from the woods. There was no escape at all, unless, of course, the fox thought he really was a crocodile. I likes danger, whispered the little fox, but a tear trickled down his nose. I likes danger when Mammy Badger is near, not all by myself in a big wood with a fox on top of me. With difficulty he put his paw in his pocket to get his handkerchief, and he brought out the bit of moonshine like a silver scarf. It shone in the boat and cheered him. Then he brought out the prickly star. It gleamed like a lamp in the darkness. He could see the red cushion which was squeezed on his head, and the oars tucked at the side of the boat, and the end of the fox's brush which poked underneath. He longed to give it a tug, but dare not touch it, although it tickled his face. Yo-ho there, called the big fox, listening, and the little red fox scarcely breathed. Is it my nephew Rufus, or is it somebody else? Called the fox, who was puzzled by the silence. Ow, growled the little red fox, trying to be a crocodile. Murmured the puzzled fox. Surely I didn't make a mistake. Surely I caught my nephew, the little red fox. Surely it isn't a great brown crocodile. Is it you, Rufus? He asked again. Roared Rufus under the boat. His voice echoed in the roof above him. It rumbled and growled under the big fox. Then the little red fox gave a nip at the big fox's brush. I'll soon find out who is under this boat, said the fox fiercely, and he sprang down and raised the bow. He only lifted it a crack, lest whatever was underneath should escape. The little red fox flashed the bright star in his eyes and fluttered the silver moonbeams over him, so that he leapt back in alarm and sat on the boat again. I've caught something, and it may be something to eat, and then again it may be something that will eat me, he thought. He sniffed, but the boat smelt of river mud and tar. He listened, but there was never a sound. He tried to peer through the boat, but the seams were closed, and only a bright light shone where the rowlocks touched the grass. For the little fox kept the star in his hand and flashed it around. Now, up in the sky, the moon was looking at this scene in the woods where Big Fox sat on top of a little boat, and a sparkle came now and then like a heavenly light. There's one of my river stars, and some of my own moonshine, said the moon to Venus, who was shining up there. The star is under a boat. It wants help. It is signalling. Some wild creature is held down by that cruel fox. I'll send an earth creature to the rescue, and who is better than that old badger lumbering along there? The moon flashed down her light. She shot her own moonbeams on the big fox so that he quivered. They were like silver arrows piercing his fur, and he looked so bright that Mr. Badger came to see what was the matter. What are you hiding there? Asked the badger. "I don't know what it is," said the fox, sliding off the boat. "You can keep it. It may be a crocodile, and it may be a lion escaped. Be careful, Badger." The fox slipped among the trees. "I wonder what that creature was," he muttered. "He walked like my nephew, Rufus. He had the same little legs, but he was strong enough to carry that boat, and he roared mightily." Mr. Badger cautiously lifted the boat, and out crept the little red fox, with a star in one paw and a scarf of moonshine in another paw. "Oh, Daddy Badger, I am glad you've come," cried the little fox. He threw his arms round his foster father's legs and hugged him with moonlight and star. "So it's you, Rufus," grunted the badger. "I thought you were fast asleep in bed, you naughty little fox." "But how did you know I was here?" asked the little red fox. "I didn't know. I just comed to see what the moon was shining on." "The moon led me here," said the badger. "The moon's my friend," said the little red fox. Then the moon, who saw the little red fox with the star in his paw and the wisp of moonshine on his shoulder, pulled a cloud over her face. "So it was the little red fox who was caught," said she. "I am the friend of little foxes and badgers and little otters and all night creatures who get lost or frightened." "Where did this boat come from?" asked Father Badger, turning the boat over and staring at her graceful shape. "The swan gave her to me for all of us," said the little red fox. "I was taking her home when my uncle caught me." "And this bright star and this bit of moonshine?" asked the badger. "I fished them out of the river," confessed the little red fox. "A bit of moonshine and a star may come in useful," said the badger thoughtfully. "Now we'll go home before your mother misses you," he added. "Yes, Daddy Badger," said the little fox meekly. He was so sleepy now he could hardly keep his eyes open. They trudged home, the little red fox following his foster father, who carried the boat. Everyone was asleep, and the tired fox crept into bed, and he too fell asleep at once. Mr. Badger put the boat in the house for safety. Then he picked up the star and the moonshine which lay on the floor. They shone so brightly he stood for a minute looking at them. "They ought to be in water," he muttered. "Very funny things are these reflections. Yes, reflections, that's what they are." So he dropped them into a bucket of water, where Bill Badger and Bonnie found them the next morning, shining with light. "Look at this star and a shiny bit of moon swimming in the water bucket," they cried. "Have they come out of the sky?" They stooped and tried to pick them up, but it was impossible. The star and the moonlight trickled through their paws and danced on the ruffled water surface. Then they saw the boat under the table. "Oh, oh, a boat! The water lily!" cried Bonnie, stroking the painted flower. "Where has she come from?" asked Bill. Mr. Badger came in from the garden, for he had been out to watch the sunrise and to welcome the new day. Mrs. Badger came running in with a couple of eggs. "It's a present given to young Rufus," said Mr. Badger. "He's been out fishing by night, and he was cotched by that great old fox and shut under this boat. That's why he's so tired this morning," said Mrs. Badger, as she put the eggs in a saucepan. "He's fast asleep." "He likes danger, Mammy," said Bonnie. "He got it this time," said Mr. Badger. "What did I get?" asked the little fox, leaping into the room. "Oh, Rufus, you've waked up," cried Bonnie. "You got a boat from somewhere," said Bill sternly. "Yes, it's my boat, given me by the Swan. We're all going out in it, if there's room," said the little red fox, and he seized Bill and Bonnie unaware and pushed them backwards into the boat, so that 8 little stiff legs waggled in the air. "Come, come," said Mrs. Badger, "don't be rough, Rufus. Here's some honeycomb your father found last night in a hollow tree." "I like what we have today," said the little red fox. "I like honeycomb. Is that why you were out in the woods, Daddy Badger?" "Yes, I'm glad I went after that honeycomb, for you were fairly cotched by that great old fox, and he would have taken you to his den," said Mr. Badger. "And made you wash up and cook and scrub for him," added Bonnie, scrambling from the boat. "And serve you right," said Bill. They ate their honey breakfast and made plans for a picnic away up the river that very same day. "Honey and new bread and fresh butter," said Mrs. Badger. "While you children ride on the water, your father and I will sit on the bank, ready to rescue you if you fall in." "We won't go fishing there," said Rufus, "but we shall see a water nymph with a gold star, and we'll talk to Peggy Whitethroat and Peggy Dishwasher and the kingfishers and the tall herons, and perhaps we shall see a crocodile." Then he noticed the bucket of water with the shining star and the scrap of moonshine. "Can we keep these, Daddy Badger?" he asked. "Yes," said the old badger. "I shall put the bucket in the dark passage, and then there will always be a light for us." "Just like the moon and a star shining there," said the little red fox. "Even when there's no moon in the sky, we shall have one of our very own." He munched his bread and honeycomb and murmured, "The moon's my friend. I caught a bit of her scarf when I went fishing, and she's given it to me to keep." That is the end of Little Red Fox and the Magic Moon by Alison Uttley. Your reader was Phillida Sewell.